Hello and welcome to the European Parliament in Brussels for this new edition of Talking Europe. Should the EU take over the supervision of Greece's budget? Well, a controversial plan from Germany to appoint a special commissioner with direct control over Greece's spending has finally been abandoned. But the debate over Greece's handling of its debt crisis is far from over. In a moment, I'll join two MEPs, one from Greece and one from Germany. I'll ask them whether Athens needs an EU headmaster. And in the second part of the show, I'll talk to László Andor, the EU Commissioner in charge of employment. I'll ask him what Europe must do to tackle soaring unemployment. But as always, we'll start on our set here at the European Parliament. Let me introduce you to my two guests today. To my left, Dimitrios Droutsas. Hello, you are a Greek MEP from the Alliance of Socialists and Democrats. You served as Minister of Foreign Affairs in a government that was in 2010, if I'm not mistaken. Also on this set, from Germany, Elmar Brok. You're a very influential MEP here in Brussels. From the European People's Party, that's of course the Conservative group in the Parliament. At home you belong to the party of Angela Merkel, to whom you are very close. And I'll start with you. We'll talk today of course about the growing impatience of Greece's partners. In your country, Germany, some officials have called for Greece to hand over its budget sovereignty to a special EU commissioner. Was that a provocation, or is it a sign that people truly believe that the Greek leadership is unable to do the job?
I have to say that this indeed, as you said, is a proposal by certain civil servants and not a position of the government. And I think that in certain circumstances in the European Union we could do such a thing, but it must be a general rule which applies to every country in certain circumstances. It says a special thing cannot be done just for Greece. It must be clear that we have a problem also in some countries, that the people do not believe anymore that there is the progress needed in order to show its own people why there should be help. And here I think we have to certain ways, and I hope that these agreements which were done last night, would mean that Greece now goes forward in order to fulfill its commitments to come out of the crisis, because we believe solidarity has two sides of one coin. One is the one side has to do the utmost to fulfill the conditions, and therefore the other has to be solidarity to help to fulfill these conditions. And these two sides have to be seen.
Mr. Droutsas, this plan, of course, which has been abandoned, caused a lot of anger in your country. It was felt as almost as an aggression on Greece, the loss of sovereignty over its budget. But it says a lot about the feeling of many Europeans. It's that the Greek leadership is not delivering. Do you agree with that?
I think what is being said and the arguments in this direction, they are understandable. I am very open to that. Unfortunately, Greek politics and Greek politicians in the past have given reason to such kind of criticism, and maybe also to a sense of distrust. So from this point of view, certainly those arguments are understandable. But on the other hand, we should not forget in all this discussion what the Greek people have already done. A whole nation is suffering. If I may use the word, a whole nation is bleeding. Let us not forget the sacrifices that the Greek people have already done. And I would like to urge and appeal to everybody to show the necessary respect to the Greek people who have nothing to do with the mistakes that have been done by the Greek political leadership in the past years, even decades. So in this direction, this proposal about a commissioner for Greece is certainly not into the right direction. It must immediately be said no to that, and I'm very grateful that also Elmar Brok has joined his voice to those of many, many EU politicians who have immediately reacted on that.
Now, Angela Merkel has indeed said that she will not go ahead with this idea of having a commissioner, but this week Angela Merkel and Nicolas Sarkozy suggested another idea. They say that funds from the new bailout should be blocked on an account, a special account, to make sure that this money will be used exclusively to repay Greece's debt. Does that look like a good idea, or is this another step towards infringing on the sovereignty of Greece?
It's part of the pressures which had to build up to come to a result in this week. And that is important. I think
it was a threat. It was more
pressure.
Pressure.
Not threat. And to come to a conclusion, because my colleague is really right, we have to see that the Greek peoples are suffering. And the problem is, and it's the normal people. They, if they work, they get the taxation taken away. But it's the political and economic elite of Greece which has betrayed its own people. And now we have a situation in countries like France or Germany or the Netherlands or Finland that we have to explain to our citizens to finance the guarantees where nobody believes in the credibility anymore of these elites in Greece, and how can that be delivered? That is very difficult for leaders like Sarkozy or Merkel to explain to the people to get a support what they want to do, to find a support for that. And I hope that not just in this question of budget cuts and other austerity means we come forward, but that is even more important for the long run, that the structural changes are done. And there are promised so many structural changes in the last 1.5 years, which not many of them are carried out by the Greek administration. And here it's a frustration we have.
That's the problem, really, as we heard. The Greek people are suffering. Now, what about the leadership? Critics say the problem is that they're still embroiled in political infighting with looming elections in April. And they're not focusing on the job. They're actually fighting among each other. The socialists, the conservatives, the nationalist Laos party. Is that true?
I would not be credible if I said this was not true. And again, I'm very open in my words of criticism, also self-criticism, if you want. I was for 2 years also part of this government. It is a fact, yes, what Elmar Brok has said. Unfortunately, many of the reforms that must be done for Greece, in Greece, not because of the Troika, because the country needs those reforms. Many of those reforms have been blocked by some, either by interest groups, either by political figures who are afraid of the so-called political cost. They are viewing too much to their own political future, the day tomorrow. So we have to stop with those things in Greece. And let me say, again, a word of criticism. What we need in Greece is political leadership that does not count what the political cost is, that is convinced that we have to do the necessary reforms. But on the other hand, allow me also to say that Europe also needs political leadership that is not afraid about what is being said at home, public opinion, and especially not what populist voices are saying back home. Because, and this is the last word, if I may, I have the feeling that in the past months, the agenda, the political agenda in Europe is put forward, is given by extremist and populist parties. We need better leadership also in Europe.
Now, before we continue our discussion, you indeed talked a lot about the sacrifices that have already been made by the Greeks. Now, Greece has been asked to adopt a new austerity package, including 3.3 billion euros in budget cuts this year. This is, of course, a precondition for Greece to receive a second bailout. We saw a lot of demonstrations this week in Greece. This, of course, these new demands have angered Greek people. Let's have a look at our report.
Civil servants and private sector workers took to the streets to say no more austerity. After nearly 2 years of ever harsher belt tightening, the country is still mired in a crippling debt crisis. Athens is now in dire need of a second bailout, but in order to get those funds, lenders want the country to implement more austerity measures.
It's obvious that there is great pressure on the country, great pressure on the people, on Greek citizens who are being called on to face a dramatic and acute dilemma.
Greece has already signed on to significant austerity measures. Athens agreed to raise taxes 5.7 billion euros by next year from 2010 levels. It's also signed on to pay cuts in the public sector, the suspension of 30,000 public sector jobs, and cutting pensions by 20%. Some experts say such measures won't help the country.
A solution is only possible if Greece can begin to see economic growth. You can't get that from lowering salaries.
Many Greeks say more austerity will impoverish households and push the country deeper into recession. A solution is becoming increasingly difficult, with Greek leaders looking to maintain popular support ahead of elections later this year.
Our reporter, Mr. Brok, Greeks say that the cut spendings required by the EU and the IMF are unbearable. Is it mission impossible for Greece? Let me ask you a very simple question. All these sacrifices, the fact that Greece has to remain in the Eurozone, cannot devalue its way into recovery, is it worth it, or should Greece think about leaving the Euro and start a new life from scratch?
I think to come to such a discipline is important to come to a better situation later, but it cannot be done alone. It must be three things. It's the fiscal discipline, it's the structural changes to become more competitive and more productive, and its means to help growth. All three has to become together, and I think both...
But how can you help growth if you ask Greece to cut spending?
Here in the bank account in Brussels are 16 billion euros, for example, which is owed by Greece from the European budget, owed money, which cannot be spent there because the Greek administration were not able to come up with projects for that. And here we have to help. And here is my criticism towards the Commission. They are not fast enough. The Greek people must see that things go forward. There is light at the end of a tunnel. Austerity is a must, but this austerity must be combined with projects for the future. And that mixture, if people see that light at the tunnel, they can bear the difficult situation. But if there's no hope, then it's difficult to bear that. And in this side, we were not very good. I think the last European Council with these programs to bring together all the money which was not used, give it for small and medium-sized companies, make them more productive, more competitive. I think that is project we have to bring more. People have to see that work goes on, that something is constructed with pictures. This have people to see in order to give them hope.
Mr. Drotsas, light at the end of the tunnel now. This new bailout, 130 billion euros, will that save Greece, or do you still believe that the situation there can be saved, that a default is not unavoidable?
I must believe in that, and what we have said right from the beginning when the crisis began 2 years ago and we had to tackle it, we said Greece needs time and some sort of security in order to be able to implement the necessary reforms. And I hope that with this new package for Greece, we can have this time and also the security necessary to now start serious work for implementing structural reforms in the country, because austerity measures, and Elmar Brok said this, I think, in the best possible way, is not enough. It must be combined with a clear program for giving again a new impetus, stimulation to Greece's economy for growth and for job creation. Don't forget also unemployment is rising in Greece, and this of course brings even more social problems.
Mm-hmm. Now, another problem is Greece's inability to deal with tax evasion. Is Europe putting enough pressure on the government of Greece, because this could bring in a lot of money if you raise the tax that Greeks owe to the government?
The pressure is there, but it's not so much done as in many other fields where you need structural changes. And I think here we have to perhaps consider in a way that, as we did it with the reconstruction of Central and Eastern Europe after 1990, is it not possible to send more experienced people, engineers, financial experts, retired people, to help to build that in Greece? That was the way how Eastern Europe was rebuilt after the fall of communism, and to get some expertise how to organize such things as advisors to certain departments in Greece, to certain economic parts.
Why is it so difficult for the Greek government to raise tax in the country?
We have, unfortunately, and again, open words of criticism. The political system in Greece in the last decades created such kind of a mentality that everything is allowed and nothing is sanctioned in Greece, also in this regard. So it needs, unfortunately, time to change also mentalities. It needs strict structural reforms also in this direction. But one word, if I may say, on the proposal and the idea to bring in experts from EU partners into Greece to support, to help out. I'm fully okay with that, and this is something we ourselves as Greek government, we had initiated. The only thing that we have to take care of is the way we do it, the way we present it. If it is presented to Greece and to the Greek people who is suffering, who is bleeding, in a way that it is anticipated as a dictate, as pressure, as not respecting the dignity. I know.
Advice,
but
support.
It is, if you
meddling.
do not respect the dignity of the people, then you will create tension and you will create reaction.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Mr. Brok, Mr. Droutsos, for taking part in this edition of Talking Europe. Now, please stay with us on France 24. We'll return after the news break. We'll bring you a close-up interview with Laszlo Andor. He's the EU Commissioner in charge of employment. He will tell us what Europe can do to fight soaring unemployment across the continent.